Once upon a time, in a small weathered cottage on the edge of a village, lived a young boy named Jack with his mother. Their life was a constant struggle, a patchwork of making do with very little. Their most prized possession, their only source of comfort and sustenance, was a gentle-eyed cow named Milky White. But one sad morning, Milky White stopped giving milk. The pail remained empty, and so did their stomachs. Jack's mother, her face etched with worry, looked at her son and said, "Jack, there's nothing else for it. You must take Milky White to the market and sell her. Get the best price you can." So, with a heavy heart, Jack tied a rope around Milky White's neck and started the long walk to town. The road was dusty, and the sun was high. He hadn't gone far when a peculiar-looking old man with a long wiry beard and twinkling eyes stepped out from behind a tree, blocking his path. "Good morning, young man," the old man chirped. "And where might you be off to with such a fine cow?" Jack explained their dire situation, his voice barely a whisper. The old man's eyes gleamed. "I have a deal for you, a deal that could change your fortune forever," he said, opening his palm. In it lay 5 strange shriveled beans. "These are no ordinary beans," the man declared, "they're magic. I'll trade them for your cow." Jack stared at the beans. Magic beans. The word itself sparked a fire in his imagination. He thought of his mother's tired face and the endless days of hunger. Perhaps this was the miracle they needed. Forgetting all about the market and the money, the innocent and hopeful Jack agreed to the trade. He handed over Milky White's rope, took the 5 beans, and ran all the way home, his heart pounding with excitement. He burst through the cottage door, shouting, "Mother, look, we're rich. I sold Milky White for magic beans." His mother's face, which had been hopeful when he entered, turned pale, then red with fury. "Magic beans," she shrieked, snatching them from his hand. "You foolish boy. You've been tricked. You traded our only cow for a handful of worthless beans." In her rage, she threw the beans out the cottage window and sent Jack to bed without any supper. Jack cried himself to sleep, his dreams of magic and riches shattered into a million pieces. But when Jack woke the next morning, something was different. A strange, green light filtered through his window. He leaped out of bed and gasped. Where his mother had thrown the beans, a colossal beanstalk now stood, its thick, leafy vines twisting together and soaring upwards, past the cottage roof, past the tallest trees, and disappearing right into the fluffy white clouds. It was a ladder to the sky. Jack's curiosity and sense of adventure completely overpowered his fear. Without a second thought, he ran outside and began to climb. He climbed and climbed, the world below shrinking into a tiny green and brown map. The air grew thinner and colder. Finally, after what felt like hours, he pulled himself over the top and onto a solid cloud that felt like firm ground. Stretched out before him was a long, straight road, leading to a castle so enormous it seemed to touch the very top of the sky. Hesitantly, Jack walked toward it. The door was so massive he could have walked through the keyhole. He slipped through a small gap under the door and found himself in a gigantic hall. The chairs and tables were the size of houses. He quickly scurried to hide behind a large teacup just as the floor began to tremble with heavy footsteps. A giant woman, as tall as a tree, entered the room. She was soon followed by her husband, a truly terrifying giant with a booming voice and a ferocious expression. "Fifty-fofum, I smell the blood of an Englishman," he roared, sniffing the air. "Be he alive, or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread." The giant's wife quickly calmed him down, saying, "It's just the leftover stew you're smelling, dear." She served him his dinner, and after he had eaten, the giant brought out his treasures. First, he commanded his wife to bring him his bags of gold coins, which he counted with greedy delight. Jack watched from his hiding spot, his eyes wide with amazement. Then, the giant bellowed, "Wife, bring me my hen." His wife returned with a small, plain-looking hen. The giant slammed his fist on the table and ordered, "Lay." To Jack's astonishment, the little hen laid a perfect, solid gold egg. The giant cackled with glee. Finally, he called for his most prized possession, a beautiful, golden harp. As soon as it was placed on the table, the harp began to play the most enchanting music all by itself. Lulling the fearsome giant to sleep, his thunderous snores echoed through the castle. This was Jack's chance. He tiptoed out from his hiding place. He knew it was wrong, but the thought of his starving mother spurred him on. He couldn't carry the gold, but the hen was small. He snatched the hen that laid the golden eggs from the table. The hen clucked in surprise but didn't make much noise. Jack ran for the door and scrambled back to the beanstalk. He slid down as fast as he could and presented the magical hen to his mother. She was overjoyed. Every day, the hen laid a golden egg, and soon, they had enough money for food, new clothes, and repairs for their cottage. But Jack was restless. He couldn't forget the beautiful, self-playing harp. After a few weeks, despite his mother's protests, he decided to climb the beanstalk again. He waited until the giant was asleep, just like before. This time he crept in and carefully lifted the golden harp from the table. But as he turned to leave, the harp cried out in a loud voice, "Master, master, a thief!" The giant woke with a roar of fury. He saw Jack running away with his harp and lunged after him. Jack raced across the cloudland with the giant's thundering footsteps right behind him. He reached the beanstalk and began to descend as fast as his arms and legs could carry him. The harp clutched tightly under his arm. He could feel the whole beanstalk swaying violently as the giant started climbing down after him. "Mother, mother, bring the axe," Jack shouted as he neared the ground. He jumped the last few feet and landed safely. His mother was already there, the axe in her hands. Jack grabbed the axe and, with all his might, began to chop at the base of the massive stalk. He swung again and again, the wood splintering with each blow. With one final, mighty chop, the beanstalk snapped. There was a tremendous tearing sound and then a deafening crash as the giant, the beanstalk, and all came tumbling down to the earth. The giant lay still, and the great beanstalk withered away to nothing. That was the end of the giant, and the end of the beanstalk. From that day forward, Jack and his mother lived in comfort and peace. With the hen that laid the golden eggs and the magical harp that filled their cottage with beautiful music, they never knew hunger or sadness again. And Jack, having learned a valuable lesson about courage and consequence, never climbed into the clouds again. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more adventures.